Before moving to the continent of Africa, I traveled. It didn't matter if it was by air, water, or road. However, I don't think I truly experienced culture shock until I relocated to Africa. And that was because there is really a difference between visiting and living in a location. Hey y'all, it's Sade Imore, your favorite expat with nomadic tendencies. If you're new here, welcome, welcome. And if you're an oldie but goodie, hey you, I see you. In my last video, I shared with you essential tips and insights on what you should know before moving to the continent of Africa. Briefly, I spoke on culture shock. And now I want to explain A, what culture shock is, and B, how it affected me. Culture shock occurs when an individual moves from his or her homeland to an unfamiliar environment. There are 4 phases to culture shock, and the first one is the honeymoon phase. Now in this phase, everything is adventurous. It's all good. You don't see anything negative, and you can almost say that you're like in a euphoria where it's all love. And to be honest with you, this is when you get scammed the most, because you're really not thinking about your survival financially in this particular moment. You're just enjoying yourself. So it's almost like you're in a vacation phase, trying to trans over into a living phase, if that makes sense. So you got to be careful. In my last video, that's what I was talking about when it comes to YouTubers smiling and being joyful and sharing their real life experiences, because they're in the honeymoon phase a lot of times. So I don't think it's intentional. I just think that you're looking at them in real time and they haven't gone through the other phases of culture shock yet. An example of what I love is the fresh fruits and vegetables. It's like you have an unlimited supply of it, and I'm just not used to seeing that in the States, because you either have to go to a farm or purchase it out of the store, like a Publix or a Walmart, and 9 times out of 10 it's GMO and not really a good product. So to see that really excited me, and I was pretty much willing to pay a little bit more than what I would usually pay because of that. The second phase to culture shock is frustration, and that's when you get irritated. Okay, it starts to set in. You've been there, say, like a month or so, and you're starting to see some things that you noticed when you were in the honeymoon phase, but it's starting to bother you now, because maybe you started talking to other locals and connecting, and you're seeing that you are being overcharged for certain things. So it goes back to the fresh fruits and vegetables being sold, on the side of the road, having an unlimited option to choose from and being willing to pay for a little more. You start to realize that you're not just paying a little bit more, you're paying 3 times more, right? And so it's stuff like that starts to bother you, because language barrier is one of those frustrations. If you don't know the language, at least the numbers are common phrases to use to be able to negotiate, then you're probably going to be overpriced every single time. And a part of the reason why you're being charged more is because you are a foreigner. So when all of that sets in, it can kind of be frustrating. It can, but you just have to stick it through, and eventually you will start to realize that, okay, if all I need to do is, learn a few numbers to get by, and I know the price, then this won't be so bad, right? Which leads me to the third phase, which is adaptation. That's when you start to realize that, you know what? Me being overcharged is frustrating. However, if I already know the price and I have my currency converter, I can negotiate this and be fine. Now, you may not want to do that all the time, which is why I love being able to go into the supermarket when I can see like prices everywhere, like everybody pays the same price. To be able to have that option is always good, but you just realize like, hey, if option A don't work, then at least I have option C. So you get to a point to where you don't allow those things to really frustrate you, because there is a workaround. I would suggest that if you are slow to learning a new language and you get frustrated easily, just take a moment to figure out what your other options are and possibly do that. Which leads me to the final stage of culture shock, which is acceptance. Everything falls into place then, right? Because you find yourself not complaining about the culture as a whole. You get into the mindset that it is what it is literally what it is, because there's nothing you can do about it, right? That's why you hear a lot of us say you have to change your mindset before you move abroad. Culture shock is not something that we have to focus on as Americans because we're already in our country, right? But I can only imagine the shock that immigrants get when they come over to America and everything is just open and free and kind of wild, and they have to adapt or find their way through. It's just something that I never really thought to think about. Yeah, it's quite interesting. That's why I say sometimes you have to experience stuff on your own to understand the depth of this thing, because it's in layers, y'all. Living in a country and visiting a country is completely different, because 9 times out of 10, when you're visiting a country, you're staying in a touristic location. The most you're probably mingling with the locals is when you're ordering food at a restaurant that's at the resort that you're probably staying at. And you don't really have to deal with the haggling, the negotiating, the trash, or life that is happening outside of where you are. So you can't compare the both of them and find balance with that. Well, that's all I have for you today. If you enjoyed this video, give it a big thumbs up, hit the notification bell so you don't miss when I post new videos, and leave a comment below. Let me know what you think. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you in my next video. Shalom.